Captain Dongwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, watching the massive alien warships fill his view screen. The Vorthin vessels looked like metal spiders with too many legs, each one 3 times larger than his own ship. Behind them floated the Council's enforcement fleet, dozens of ships from different alien races, all pointing their weapons at his small human mining operation. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "Admiral Zexathara is demanding to speak with you." Dongwoo straightened his uniform and nodded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the tall, insect-like form of the Vorthin admiral. Her 4 arms moved in what humans had learned was a gesture of supreme contempt. "Human captain?" Zexathara's voice came through the translator with obvious disgust. "You have 48 hours to remove all your primitive vessels from this system. The Council has decided that your species lacks the intelligence to properly manage these mining rights." Dongwoo kept his face calm, even though anger burned in his chest. The humans had discovered the rich mineral deposits in the Kepler 442 system fair and square. They had followed every single Council regulation, filed every required document, and paid every fee the aliens demanded. Now, 3 months into their mining operation, the Council was simply taking it away. "Admiral, we have legal rights to this system," Dongwoo replied carefully. "Our permits are valid for another 18 months. The alien's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Legal rights? You monkeys understand nothing about law. The Council protects civilized species from your destructive tendencies. You humans strip resources like parasites with no thought for proper stewardship. We've followed every environmental protocol," Dongwoo said, his voice getting harder. "Our impact studies show minimal silence." Zexathara's 4 eyes blazed with fury. 48 hours, human. Remove your ships, or we will remove them for you. Consider this your final warning." The transmission cut off, leaving Dongwoo staring at the alien fleet. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. These were good people. Engineers, miners, security officers who had worked hard to make this operation successful. Now they were being thrown out like garbage. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador So-Young Park sat in the Galactic Assembly Chamber, trying to keep her dignity as alien after alien stood up to insult humanity. The chamber was a massive dome that could hold representatives from all the Council species. Today it felt like a courtroom where humans were the defendants. "The motion before us is simple," announced Councillor Veltar of the Hegemony. The tall, blue-skinned alien looked down at So-Young with obvious contempt. "Humanity must surrender all military vessels and weapons technology to Council oversight. Furthermore, all human colonies outside their home system must accept protective supervision from mature species." So-Young stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent, though she could feel the hostile stares of hundreds of alien eyes. "Councillor Veltar, humanity has never violated any peace treaty. We have honored every agreement. Why are you treating us like criminals?" Veltar's response echoed through the chamber. "Because you are criminals. Your species wages war on each other constantly. You destroy your own planet's environment. You have no respect for authority or tradition. Most disturbing of all, you reproduce without permission and spread across space like a disease." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the alien delegates. So-Young felt her face grow hot with shame and anger. Yes, humans had problems. Yes, they had wars and environmental issues. But they were trying to do better. They had come to space seeking friendship and cooperation. "Humanity deserves the same rights as any council member," So-Young said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Rights?" Veltar's laugh was cruel. "You barely sentient primates playing with tools beyond your comprehension? You have been given far more consideration than your primitive status warrants. The Council's patience with your species has reached its limit." The blue alien gestured dismissively. "Accept our terms, or humanity will be expelled from Council space entirely. You have 72 hours to decide." So Young looked around the chamber, hoping to see at least one friendly face among the alien delegates. She found none. Even the species that had once seemed neutral now watched her with cold indifference. Humanity stood completely alone. That night, Ji-Hoon Lee sat in his office in the underground complex beneath Seoul. As Earth's Director of Colonial Affairs, he was responsible for coordinating humanity's expansion into space. The reports flowing across his desk painted a grim picture. The Kepler 442 situation was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, human colonies and research stations were receiving similar ultimatums. The Centaurian Trade Federation had suddenly canceled all contracts with human businesses, claiming quality concerns. The Aldebaran Scientific Council had banned humans from their research facilities, saying human methods were too chaotic and unpredictable. Even the normally peaceful Rigel Republic had asked human diplomats to leave their space. Ji-Hoon rubbed his tired eyes and pulled up the secure communication system. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. The message he was about to send would change everything. There would be no going back. But what choice did they have? 30 years of trying to fit in, of accepting insults and discrimination, of hoping things would get better. The aliens had made their position clear. Humanity would never be accepted as equals. They could either submit to becoming second-class citizens in their own galaxy, or they could leave and find their own way. Ji-Hoon began typing the encrypted message that would go out to every human colony, every fleet, every research station, in Council space. Protocol Exodus is now in effect. All human personnel are to withdraw from Council territory immediately. No further negotiations with Council species. Humanity stands alone from this point forward. Gather all resources, technology, and personnel. We are going home to prepare for an uncertain future. He paused before hitting the send button. This message would be seen as a declaration of independence, or maybe even war. The Council would probably celebrate at first, thinking they had scared the troublesome humans into submission. They would learn their mistake soon enough. Ji-Hoon sent the message and leaned back in his chair. Somewhere in the Kepler 442 system, Captain Dong-Woo Kim would soon receive new orders. Somewhere in the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador So-Young Park would stand up and deliver humanity's final response to 30 years of contempt and discrimination. The galaxy had pushed humanity too far. The Council wanted them gone. Fine. They would get their wish. But they would soon discover that making enemies of an entire species was the biggest mistake in galactic history. The breaking point had been reached. There would be no more compromise. No more attempts at peaceful cooperation. Humanity was done trying to prove they belonged in galactic civilization. Now they would build their own. Captain Hyun-Ki Choi watched the last transport ship leave the surface of New Seoul Colony. The planet had been humanity's pride, a perfect world with blue oceans and green continents that reminded everyone of Earth. Now they were abandoning it, leaving behind 5 years of hard work and dreams. All civilian transports are clear of the atmosphere, reported his communications officer. The demolition teams are in position. Hyun-Ki nodded grimly. Protocol Exodus was clear. Leave nothing useful behind for the Council species. If humanity could not have these worlds, then no one could benefit from human work and sacrifice. Begin demolition sequence. Below them, the carefully built cities of New Seoul Colony disappeared in bright flashes. The fusion power plants, the automated factories, the water purification systems, everything that had made this world livable for humans, was systematically destroyed. The colonists watched from their transport ships, many crying as they saw their homes vanish. "Captain," his science officer called out, "we're receiving similar reports from all human settlements. Tau Ceti base is evacuated and destroyed. The mining station at Wolf 359 is gone. Even the research outpost at Glisa 667C has been abandoned. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out dozens of times. Dr. Min Jung-oh stood in her laboratory, on the joint xenobiology station orbiting Kepler 186f, carefully destroying 30 years of research data. The alien scientists she had worked with for so long watched in confusion as she deleted files and smashed equipment. "Dr. Oh, what are you doing?" asked her Centaurian colleague, Dr. Fluxara. "This research belongs to all civilized species. You cannot destroy it." Min Jung looked at the tall, gray alien who had been her research partner for over a decade. They had made breakthrough discoveries together, shared late nights working on complex problems, even celebrated successful experiments with drinks that barely agreed with human biology. Now, that friendship meant nothing. "This research was created by human minds using human resources," Min Jung said quietly. "If humanity is not civilized enough to participate in galactic society, then our discoveries are not civilized enough either." She pressed the final delete key and watched as years of work vanished. The cure for Rigelian blood fever, the new food production methods that could feed billions, the breakthrough in faster-than-light communication, all gone. Dr. Fluxara made a sound of distress as the data disappeared. "You are making a terrible mistake," the alien pleaded. "This knowledge could help millions of beings across the galaxy. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided humans." "We're too primitive to deserve respect," Min Jung replied. She picked up her personal belongings and walked toward the transport ship that would take her away from this place forever. Meanwhile, in the deep space regions that the Council considered worthless, Admiral Tae-won Seo was making a discovery that would change everything. His small fleet had been exploring the Void Sector, a region of space filled with dangerous gravitational anomalies and strange energy fields that destroyed most ships. "Admiral, this is impossible," reported his chief engineer, staring at the readouts. "These energy readings should have torn our ships apart hours ago, but our fusion drives are actually running more efficiently than normal." Tae-won studied the data with growing excitement. The exotic matter fields that made this region deadly to alien ships seemed to boost human technology instead of destroying it. Council ships used anti-grav drives that relied on stable space-time. But human fusion drives worked by containing tiny artificial stars, and stars thrived in the chaotic energy of the Void Sector. "Set up a base on that asteroid," Tae-won ordered. "We're staying here." Back in Council space, the aliens were beginning to realize what humanity's withdrawal really meant. On the trading station at Vega Prime, Centaurian merchant Clixtar stared at empty storage bays that used to hold human goods. "Where are the agricultural products from Tau Ceti?" he demanded from the station manager. "My buyers are waiting for those shipments." The station manager, a nervous Rigelian, twisted his tentacles anxiously. "The humans destroyed everything when they left. The entire colony is gone." "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" "Blown up, demolished. Nothing left but empty buildings and dead machines." Clixtar felt his profit margins collapsing. Human agricultural techniques had revolutionized food production across the galaxy. Their vertical farms and soil enhancement methods had ended hunger on dozens of worlds. Now all that knowledge was walking away with the humans. On the Vorthan homeworld, Industrial Coordinator Hexmurak discovered an even worse problem. The rare metals that powered Vorthan technology came from human mining operations in dangerous asteroid fields. Vorthan ships were too large and clumsy to work in those tight spaces, but human vessels could dart between the rocks like metal fish. "What do you mean the shipments have stopped?" Hexmurak demanded. "The human mining ships have all left," reported his assistant. "They destroyed the mining equipment before they went. The asteroids are still there, but we have no way to extract the metals safely." Similar scenes played out across Council space. The Rigelian medical centers found themselves without the human-developed surgical robots that had made complex operations possible. The Aldebaran universities lost access to human databases that contained thousands of years of scientific knowledge. Even simple things became problems. human-designed air recyclers, human-built communication relays, human-programmed computer systems. Engineer Subin Han was working frantically in the cargo bay of a converted transport ship, trying to modify human technology for their new environment. The reports from Admiral Seo's expedition had reached the main evacuation fleet, and she was fascinated by the possibilities. If the exotic matter fields enhance our fusion reactions, she muttered to herself, then we might be able to build ships that are impossible in normal space. She pulled up the design files for a new type of vessel, one that would use the chaotic energy of the void sector as fuel instead of fighting against it. The ship would be useless in council space, where stable physics ruled. But in the dangerous regions where no one else could go, it would be unstoppable. "Subin," called her supervisor, "how long until you have those life support modifications ready?" 2 days, she replied, not looking up from her work. "But sir, I have an idea for something much more important. What if we stopped trying to build ships that work everywhere, and started building ships that work perfectly in places no one else can survive?" The supervisor looked at her designs and slowly smiled. "Show me." As the months passed, the council began to understand what they had lost. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades suddenly collapsed. Entire industries ground to a halt without human innovation and labor. Worlds that had depended on human food production faced starvation. But the council's pride prevented them from admitting their mistake. Instead, they told themselves that losing the primitive humans was worth the temporary inconvenience. They would adapt. They would find other solutions. They had no idea that in the dark regions of space they considered uninhabitable, humanity was not just surviving. They were evolving into something far more dangerous than the Council's worst nightmares. The withdrawal was complete. Humanity had vanished from civilized space like smoke in the wind. But smoke can become fire under the right conditions, and the galaxy was about to burn. 2 years had passed since humanity disappeared from Council space. The galaxy had grown used to shortages and failed trade routes. Most aliens convinced themselves that life was better without the troublesome humans. Then the first reports came, in from the outer rim worlds. Counselor Veltar was reviewing agricultural statistics when his aide burst into the chamber without permission. The young hegemony officer's face was pale with terror. "Sir, we're receiving emergency transmissions." "From the outer colonies?" the aide gasped. "Something is attacking them, something we've never seen before." Veltar frowned. The outer rim was filled with primitive worlds barely worth the Council's attention. "Pirates, rogue factions, handle it with local security forces." "No, sir, you don't understand." The aide activated the holographic display, showing grainy footage from a security satellite. "Look at this." The image showed a peaceful farming world called Keth Prime. Green fields stretched to the horizon under a yellow sun. Then dark shapes began dropping from the sky like black rain. Within minutes, the shapes had grown into writhing masses of flesh and metal that devoured everything they touched. "What are those things?" Veltar whispered. "Intelligence calls them the Drakhar Swarm," the aide replied. "They appeared from dark space 3 weeks ago. Every world they touch is completely consumed. The population, the buildings, even the soil, everything becomes part of the swarm." More reports flooded in over the following days. World after world fell to the hungry mass of alien creatures. The swarm moved like a plague across space, growing larger with each planet it devoured. Council fleets sent to stop them were overwhelmed and absorbed into the collective mass. Admiral Zexithera led the largest battle fleet in Vorthan history against the swarm near the Rigel system. Her ships outnumbered the swarm vessels 3-1, and Vorthan technology was among the best in the galaxy. The battle lasted 6 hours. "Admiral, they're adapting to our weapons," her tactical officer screamed over the alarms. "Every time we hit them, they change to resist the next shot." Zexthera watched in horror as the swarm creatures literally ate her ships, tearing through the metal hulls like they were made of paper. Worse, the consumed ships were rebuilt and turned against. "The remaining Vorthan fleet within minutes. All ships retreat," she ordered. But it was too late. Only her flagship escaped the massacre, and it was badly damaged. In the emergency council session that followed, panic filled the great chamber. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other, demanding solutions that no one had. "We need the full military might of all council species," declared Councillor Hexmarak of the Centaurians. "The swarm adapts to every weapon we use," replied General Kefton of the Rigelians. "Conventional warfare is useless against them." "Then what do you suggest?" Veltar demanded. "That we simply surrender our worlds to these creatures?" The chamber fell silent. No one had an answer. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, but they had never faced anything like the Drakhar swarm. That's when the holographic display activated without permission. The image of a human appeared in the center of the chamber, causing gasps of shock from the alien delegates. "I am Ambassador Jae-Sung Kang of the Human Cooperative," the man said calmly. "I understand you have a problem." Veltar shot to his feet. "How dare you interrupt a council session? Humans have no authority here." "You're right," Jae-Sung replied with a cold smile. "We don't. We're not part of your council anymore, remember? You made that very clear 2 years ago." "The swarm threatens all intelligent life," pleaded Councillor Flugzara of the Centaurians. "Surely humanity will help defend civilized space?" Jae-Sung's expression didn't change. "Civilized space? You declared us unfit for civilized company. You called us barely sentient primates. Why should we care what happens to civilizations that cast us out?" The chamber erupted in angry shouts, but Jae-Sung continued speaking over the noise. "You wanted us gone. Congratulations, you got your wish. The galaxy belongs to you now. Enjoy defending it." The transmission cut off, leaving the council delegates staring at empty space. For the first time in galactic history, the mighty council had begged for help and been refused. In the void sector, Fleet Admiral Youngsuk Lim studied the reports from council space with grim satisfaction. The Drakhar swarm was exactly the kind of enemy she had been preparing to fight. Her ships were ready. "Dr. Sang-ho, are the quantum weapons online?" she asked. Dr. Sang-ho Kim looked up from his control panel. Over the past 2 years, he had developed weapons that used the strange physics of the void sector. Quantum entanglement bombs that could tear holes in reality itself. Singularity missiles that created tiny black holes. Phase cannons that fired shots through multiple dimensions. "All weapons are ready, Admiral," he reported. "The swarm uses biological technology that adapts to energy weapons. But they can't adapt to attacks that exist outside normal space-time." Engineer Bo-Ra Lee had been working on an even more impossible project. Her new ships could phase in and out of normal reality, becoming ghost-like vessels that could pass through solid matter. "The stealth fleet is prepared," Bo-Ra reported. 12 ships that can appear inside enemy vessels without warning. The swarm won't even see us coming." Youngsuk nodded. Intelligence reports showed that the Drakhar swarm was approaching the core council worlds. Soon they would reach the Vorthan homeworld itself. The aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive would face an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. But when the swarm encountered humanity's ghost fleet near the Altair system, everything changed. The swarm ships detected normal space activity and moved to investigate. Their biomechanical vessels pulsed with hunger, ready to consume whatever they found. Instead, they found nothing but empty space. Then Youngsuk's ships materialized inside the swarm vessels. The quantum bombs detonated simultaneously, tearing holes in space-time that the swarm couldn't heal or adapt to. Entire swarm ships simply ceased to exist, erased from reality across multiple dimensions. The collective intelligence that controlled the swarm screamed in confusion as it lost contact with dozens of vessels in seconds. Phase 2, Young Suk ordered calmly. More human ships appeared, this time using conventional weapons enhanced by void sector technology. But these weren't the primitive fusion drives the Council remembered. These were weapons that had evolved in the chaotic energy fields of dark space, becoming something entirely new. The swarm tried to adapt, but how do you adapt to weapons that operate outside the laws of physics? How do you defend against ships that can become incorporeal? How do you absorb technology that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously? For the first time in its existence, the Drakkar swarm retreated. News of the swarm's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The unstoppable force had been stopped by the species the Council had thrown away. In the Council chamber, Veltar stared at the battle reports with growing dread. The humans hadn't just defeated the swarm, they had made it look easy. These weren't the primitive primates the Council remembered. This was something new, something that had grown strong in the dark places where no one else could survive. The galaxy was about to learn that throwing humanity into the void hadn't destroyed them, it had forged them into something far more dangerous. The Vorthen homeworld burned under alien skies. Admiral Zexthara stood on the bridge of her last remaining ship, watching the once mighty capital of her empire being consumed by the Drakkar swarm. Around her floated the wreckage of 1,000 Council vessels, their crews either dead or absorbed into the enemy collective. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," her communications officer reported. "It's from the humans." Zexthara felt her pride crumble. 3 months ago, she had dismissed human ships as primitive toys. Now she was about to beg the same species for salvation. "Put them through." The holographic display showed Captain Dongwu Kim, the same human captain she had threatened at Kepler 442. His expression was calm, almost friendly, but his eyes held no warmth. "Admiral Zexthara," Dongwu said politely, "I understand you're having some difficulties." "Captain Kim," Zexthara forced the words out. "The Vorthen hegemony formally requests humanitarian assistance. Our people are dying." "Humanitarian assistance?" Dongwu seemed genuinely puzzled. "But Admiral, you told me that humans lack the intelligence to properly manage anything. Why would you want help from such primitive beings?" Zexthara closed her 4 eyes in shame. "Captain, we were wrong. Please, innocent civilians are being slaughtered." "I'm sorry, Admiral, but the human cooperative has a strict policy. We only provide aid to civilized species who treat us with respect. Since you've made it clear that we don't qualify as civilized, we can't very well help you. Can we?" The transmission ended, leaving Zexthara staring at the approaching swarm ships. Her homeworld would fall within hours, and the species that could save it had just walked away. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as Council worlds fell one by one. The proud Centaurian Trade Federation was reduced to refugee fleets fleeing from system to system. The Rigelian Republic's core worlds lay in ruins, their ancient libraries consumed by hungry alien biomass. In the emergency bunker beneath the Council headquarters, the surviving leaders gathered for what might be their final meeting. Counselor Veltar looked around the table at faces filled with despair and growing panic. "The swarm has consumed 47 worlds in the past month," reported General Kefton. "Our remaining fleets can't even slow them down. Every weapon we use, they adapt to within hours." "What about the Aldebaran's new plasma cannons?" asked Counselor Fluxara desperately. "Absorbed and countered in 6 hours," Kefton replied. "The swarm now uses plasma weapons against us." Veltar slammed his fist on the table. "There has to be something. We've ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. "The humans stopped them," said a quiet voice from the corner. Everyone turned to look at Ambassador Kilneth of the Tau Cetians, one of the few species that had always remained neutral. At Altair, at Vega, at Procyon. Every time the swarm meets human forces, the humans win. Impossible, Veltar snarled. Human technology is centuries behind ours. Then explain how they're winning battles we can't even survive, Kilneth replied calmly. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Fluxara spoke the words no one wanted to hear. We have to ask them for help. Never, Veltar shouted. I will not grovel. Before those primitive apes. Then you will die with pride while your people are eaten alive, Kilneth said bluntly. The choice is yours. On Earth, President Dalho Park met with the leaders of humanity's new civilization. The conference room overlooked the rebuilt city of Sol, where human and alien refugees now worked side by side. Word of the Council's desperate situation had reached every human settlement. They're begging for help now, reported Governor Yunhai, Shin of the Void Colonies. After 2 years of calling us savages, they want us to save their civilizations. Commander Wu Jin Nam of the Rim Defense Force laughed bitterly. I say we let them burn. They made their choice when they threw us out. Millions of innocent civilians will die, Dalho said quietly. Children who never voted to exile us. Scientists who spent their lives seeking knowledge. Are we going to punish them for their leaders' mistakes? They didn't speak up when we were being humiliated, Yunhai pointed out. Their silence made them complicit. Dalho nodded slowly. Perhaps. But if we help them, it won't be out of forgiveness. It will be because we have terms they need to accept. The next day, the surviving council leaders received a message that would change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Jae Sung Kang appeared before them via hologram, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood the military and political leaders of human space. The Human Cooperative has considered your requests. For assistance, Jae Sung announced formally. We are prepared to help defend your remaining worlds against the Drakkar swarm. Relief flooded through the council chamber, but Jae Sung wasn't finished. However, our assistance comes with non-negotiable conditions. First, the Galactic Council is hereby dissolved. Second, all surviving alien civilizations will join the new Galactic Cooperative under human leadership. Third, all military forces will be integrated under human command. Fourth, all former council laws discriminating against humanity are permanently revoked. Veltar shot to his feet. Outrageous! You're demanding complete surrender. No, Jae Sung replied coldly. We're offering you survival. The alternative is extinction at the hands of the swarm. Choose. This is blackmail, Veltar screamed. This is reality, Jae Sung said. You declared war on humanity when you exiled us. Now you're learning what it means to lose that war. General Haewon Jung stepped forward. Her uniform bore no rank insignia that the aliens recognized, but her presence commanded respect. We've located the swarm's core hive, she announced. A massive biostructure in the Cygnus arm that controls the entire collective. Human forces are prepared to destroy it completely. How? Whispered Counselor Fluxara. With weapons that exist outside normal space-time, Haewon replied. Technology your species could never have developed because you were too afraid to explore the dangerous regions of space. We learned to thrive where you couldn't even survive. She gestured to the holographic display, showing images of human ships that looked like nothing the Council had ever seen, vessels that flickered in and out of reality, weapons that fired. Through multiple dimensions, technology that bent space and time itself. The swarm adapts to conventional physics, Haewon explained, but they can't adapt to attacks that come from outside reality itself. We don't just fight them. We erase them from existence across all possible timelines. Veltar stared at the impossible technology with growing horror. What have you become? We've become what you forced us to become. Dalho Park's voice joined. The transmission. You threw us into the void thinking it would destroy us. Instead, it made us stronger than you ever imagined. The president of Earth looked directly at Veltar. You have 6 hours to accept our terms. After that, we withdraw our offer and leave you to face the swarm alone. One by one, the surviving council leaders voted to accept humanity's conditions. The 10,000-year-old Galactic Council officially surrendered to the species they had once dismissed as primitive animals. The galaxy now belonged to humanity, and humanity was about to show everyone exactly what they had learned in the dark. General Haiwan Jung stood on the command bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the massive biostructure that was the Drakkar Swarm's core hive. The thing was larger than most moons, a writhing mass of organic technology that pulsed with alien intelligence. Around it, thousands of swarm ships moved like antibodies protecting a diseased heart. "All units report ready," announced her tactical officer. "Phase cannon arrays are charged. Quantum torpedo tubes are loaded. Dimensional breach generators are standing by." Haiwan nodded. Behind her stretched the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled. Ghost ships that could phase through matter. Quantum destroyers that fired weapons from multiple dimensions. Reality warpers that could rewrite the laws of physics in localized space. "Begin the final assault," she ordered calmly. The swarm detected the approaching human fleet and responded with massive force. Bioships the size of cities launched themselves toward the humans, their hulls bristling with weapons adapted from every species they had consumed. Plasma cannons stolen from Centaurian designs, particle beams copied from Vorthan technology, shield systems learned from Rigelian defenses, but humanity's weapons came from places the swarm had never visited, from the chaotic energy fields of the void sector, from the twisted space-time of quantum storms, from dimensions that existed outside normal reality. "Fire," Haiwan said quietly. The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had no names in any alien language, phase cannons that shot through 11 dimensions simultaneously, quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple timelines at once, singularity bombs that created holes in the fabric of space itself. The swarm tried to adapt, but how do you adapt to an attack that comes from outside existence? Their biotechnology screamed in confusion as weapons that shouldn't be possible tore through their defenses like they were made of paper. "Direct hit on the core hive," reported the weapons officer. "The quantum breach is expanding." Haiwan watched as a hole in reality itself opened in the center of the swarm's massive biostructure. The dimensional rift began pulling the entire hive into nothingness, erasing it from existence across all possible timelines. "All swarm ships are losing coherence," the communications officer announced. "The collective intelligence is breaking down." Across the galaxy, every swarm creature suddenly stopped moving. The bioships that had been devouring council worlds fell silent. The ground troops that had been consuming populations simply collapsed. Without their core intelligence to guide them, the entire swarm network died in minutes. The war was over. Humanity had not just defeated the swarm, they had erased it from existence itself. 6 months later, Chancellor In-seok Yu stood before the first assembly of the new Galactic Cooperative. The chamber was different now, smaller, more practical, designed for cooperation instead of domination. Human and alien representatives sat together, no longer separated by species hierarchy. The old council ruled through fear and superiority, In-seok announced to the mixed crowd. The cooperative will govern through merit and mutual benefit. Every species that contributes to our common good will be respected and protected. In the audience sat former Councillor Veltar, now serving as a cultural advisor to the human administration. The proud alien who had once called humans primitive animals now worked quietly to help his people adapt to their new reality. His homeworld had been saved by human intervention, and his species now thrived under human protection. The integration. "Programs are showing remarkable success," reported Dr. Ye Jin Song, humanity's new director of interspecies relations. Former council species are adapting well to cooperative governance. Many are requesting full citizenship in human space. The young Vorthan named Zilnara was one of them. She had been only 16 when her home world was attacked by the swarm, and she had watched human ships arrive like angels of salvation. Now she wore the uniform of a cadet at the New Geneva Naval Academy, the first non-human to be accepted into humanity's premier military school. "I want to serve the species that saved my people," she had told the admission board. "Humans showed mercy when they could have shown vengeance. I want to earn the right to call myself human too." Her classmates, mostly humans, but including a few other alien species, had accepted her without question. In the new galaxy, loyalty mattered more than biology. Not everyone accepted the new order willingly. Admiral Kexvar of the former hegemony had gathered a small fleet of bitter aliens who refused to acknowledge human authority. They called themselves the Liberation Front and operated from hidden bases in the Outer Rim. "We will restore the natural order," Kexvar declared in his underground broadcasts. "The galaxy belongs to the superior species, not to primitive apes with stolen technology." But Director Mi-Kyung Baek and her intelligence service had been monitoring the Liberation Front. For months, human spy networks, enhanced by technology that could track ships across multiple dimensions, made hiding from the cooperative nearly impossible. "Target acquired," reported Captain Sun Young-on from her stealth ship. "Liberation Front base located in the Deneb system. 23 vessels, mostly light cruisers and fighters. End it," Mi-Kyung ordered simply. The rebellion died before it truly began. Human ships materialized inside the rebel base without warning, their phase technology making all defenses useless. Kexvar's fleet surrendered without firing a shot, faced with weapons they couldn't see or understand. "You cannot defeat the natural order forever," Kexvar snarled as he was taken into custody. "Superior species will always dominate the weak." "You're right," Sun Young replied calmly. "The superior species is dominating. That's why humans are in charge and you're in prison." 5 years after the formation of the Galactic Cooperative, Ambassador Dong-Soo Choi addressed the anniversary assembly. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Trade flowed freely between species that had once been enemies. Scientific research advanced through cooperation instead of competition. Wars between civilizations had become a thing of the past. "Some of you remember the old galaxy," Dong-Soo said, looking out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. "You remember when might made right, when the strong preyed on the weak, when species were judged by their age instead of their contributions." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The Council taught us that the galaxy was a harsh place where only the dominant could survive. They were wrong. The galaxy is what we make it." Former Admiral Zexathara, now serving as a logistics coordinator for the cooperative fleet, nodded in agreement. She had learned the hard way that arrogance and cruelty led only to destruction. Under human leadership, her people had achieved prosperity they had never known under the old system. "We humans were called primitive," Dong-Soo continued. "We were told we didn't belong among civilized species. The Council was right about one thing. We didn't belong in their civilization. We belonged in something better." He gestured to the mixed assembly before him. "This is what we built in exile. Not just better technology or stronger weapons, but a better way of living together. The Council wanted to keep us down, but they only made us reach higher." Young Zilnara, now a lieutenant in the cooperative fleet, smiled as she listened. She had grown up in the new galaxy, where species worked together instead of fighting for dominance. Her children would never know the fear and hatred that had defined the old council. "The galaxy learned too late what happens when you provoke humanity," Dong-Soo concluded. "Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to accept the limitations others tried to place on us." The assembly rose in applause, humans and aliens together. citizens of a galaxy that had learned the most important lesson in its history. Never underestimate the species you throw away. They might come back as your saviors or your conquerors,